Hello everybody, welcome along. I did not expect to be back here today. I thought I was done, but the only thing that appears to be done is Paul Warne's time as Derby County manager. Derby have sacked Paul Warne. We are reacting. Warne took Derby up from League One, but leaves them in a fair bit of bother in the relegation zone in the Championship. We are round 31 this weekend, so there will be less than a third of games remaining. 15 to play. Derby need to get out of dodge. They don't think Paul Warne is going to do that for them. Let me know your thoughts down there in the comments. I will give you mine. Let's just talk a little bit about Warne and his background and why he essentially has been sacked. Warne, I don't think he ever wanted to be Rotherham manager. He kind of jokes about it, but he kind of ended up Rotherham manager. I think he's got 3 relegations with Rotherham from the Championship and 3 promotions from League One. And I always looked upon that record. I know a lot of people just looked at a guy getting relegated 3 times, but I think there's a bit more nuance than that. I think he did an amazing job in League One, where Rotherham were just kings of the wild frontier, a brilliant League One side under Paul Warne. And in the Championship, I do think, and you can look at the published accounts, they were always up against it financially. You can argue that other sides have been up against it financially and done better, but somewhere in between the 2 divisions is Rotherham's natural level, and I always thought Warne did a decent job. He actually jumped down a division. He was at Rotherham in the Championship when the Derby job came up. Liam Rossini was there. David Clowes did his kind of civic duty and made the takeover and wanted to bring Paul Warne in, obviously, as a League One promotion specialist. They didn't do it on the first go. That was the season where I think it's like Plymouth 101, Ipswich 99, Sheffield Wednesday 97 or something like that. So maybe wrong place, wrong time in his first season, but he managed to get them up another promotion out of League One for Paul Warne. Here they are back in the Championship this season. We think Derby is a big club, even at kind of Championship level. However, they'd had their problems with Mel Morris, the kind of financial meltdown. This is a reset. They're not the powerhouse they were when Morris was there, and they seem to be perpetually knocking on the door of promotion to the Premier League, but never quite making it. I go back to the start of the season, and there's going to be a lot of I told you so. We've already had a lot of I told you so about Wayne Rooney, where the prevailing mood, as positive as I tried to be about Rooney at Plymouth, was, no, Ben, he's rubbish. He'll be gone by October. Well, it wasn't gone by October, but I think it's like New Year's Eve, Rooney. A lot of people also said to me about Paul Warne, he's a top League One manager and not a Championship manager. And I've never believed that, but right now, today, maybe I've changed my mind, or I'm the closest to being convinced, because he's had another crack at the Championship. And look, again, Derby aren't a parachute team or a big moneyed team by any stretch of the imagination, but it's not Rotherham anymore. And with the infrastructure and the kind of size of Derby, maybe this was the chance for Paul Warne to prove he was a good Championship manager. And unfortunately, he's left them in the relegation zone and been sacked. So maybe all those people that always told me, you're too kind to Warne, Ben, it's because you've met him and you like him. Maybe they were right. Maybe he's a top League One manager and not a Championship manager. I think maybe this is the conclusive piece of evidence that I and everybody else needed. You could say I told you so, but that's always been my take on Warne. In Derby come to the Championship, I will say it's not the greatest squad in the Championship by any stretch, and they've not spent any money really on the squad. And if you look at assets, it does have a League One feel about it. I mean, go figure, they were in League One last season. There was a bit of a sense that he was doing a good job earlier in the year, and we knew Derby under Warne were very good on set plays, and they were doing well at Pride Park and sort of fairly well up the table. But unfortunately, a couple of things have happened since we've been able to say that. They've stopped doing well anywhere and the losing run. But what you also have to factor in is the boosts that the likes of Oxford have got since they hired Gary Rowett. Are Stoke now going to trend up and away from the bottom under Mark Robbins? Cardiff have had 2 little spikes under Omar Ritza. Portsmouth are now doing what Derby were doing. We're saying, Portsmouth, they look all right. They got goals in the team with Lang and Bishop and Murphy and the guys up front. And they're doing well at Fratton. Hull trending up under Ruben Sellers. And there's 2 teams below Derby. Maybe we're not expecting to trend up from Plymouth, but we are still from Luton, whether that's stupid or not with their squad. So big problem for Derby is not only have they trended down into the bottom 3, but a lot of teams have already moved up. And there's a couple of arguments, particularly in Luton and Stoke's case, that they're going to move up as well. And it's really, really basic with the trends going as they are at the moment. Derby are going to get relegated. That's fairly straightforward, isn't it? They need to trend up and they need a couple of other clubs in the battle to stop winning. I'm sure they'll be pretty annoyed at their former manager there, Gary Rowett, who you'd have thought Oxford, in terms of squad, would have been a struggle, but they have had a golden start under Gary Rowett and are currently 10 points ahead of Derby. Derby below the 1 point per game, which you would expect take you to 46. You've got a good chance of surviving, history says, with 46, but Derby are below that, 27 points from 30 games. Timing is always interesting with managerial sackings. People are going to look at the transfer window. I know Cashin has been sold, but the 2 lads from Norway have come in. I think there was a bit spent on the centre half as well. They've not done as much as they probably wanted. I know there's bad injury issues as well, and Curtis Nelson out for the season is a big problem there. But you can't ignore 8 straight defeats, can you? Big, big problem. So, well, people will look at the timing and, the window's just closed and, could they have given another manager the window or whatnot? Well, I mean, I don't know how many of these games in this losing run have occurred in January. I will be able to tell you if I click a couple of buttons. Yeah, Christ. So they went in to December the 29th. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Oh, God, that's all the defeats. There you go. So the run goes literally from December the 29th through to now. So in defence of the Derby ownership, they've gone into a transfer window December the 29th, okay, give or take a couple of days, but you're already going to be doing your work there. And here's the 8 straight defeats run. Stylistically, I think a lot of people are going to say about Warne, I don't know, does it work anymore? You look at Danny Roll and Marty Cifuentes and their approach and their kind of cerebral interviews. And I love Paul Warne, but it is still very bantery in the interviews, very much up and at them, very self-deprecating, lots of talk about gassing out and leaving everything out there and running until you drop. And I don't know, is it working anymore? It certainly hasn't worked for Warne at Derby. So on the one hand, as a person, I'm sad that he's gone, but I don't really think there's much of an argument against it, given all the things I've just said. I don't think you can say, we get a lot of dismissals in the Championship where people say, that is mad. Why have they done that? I think a couple of the Stoke ones earlier in the season where, you've gone all in on a certain manager and all of a sudden you've not given it any time and you pivot into a new one. You just can't say that for Derby. His legacy's going to be he took them out of League One and got the club on a sure footing. But those people that argue Paul Warne is an excellent League One manager or maybe a manager of an underdog type situation or club and not a Championship manager in Derby County who can draw 30,000 at Championship level, maybe that's not his gig. That's a shame because you would have hoped he could do the job, but hey, football's ruthless and who cares whether it's a shame or not? For the fans, it's all about winning and losing, and 8 defeats on the trot says a lot. Let me know your thoughts on the departure and anything I've said. And the big question, get in the comments, who should be the next Derby County manager? Paul Warne is out. Will this change facilitate Derby staying in the Championship or not? Let it rip in the comments. Derby fan or not, I want to hear your thoughts. Paul Warne is gone from Pride Park.